greetings of peace and militant solidarity. Welcome again to the 24-hour global launch of the anti-war campaign, Fight Against War of Aggression and Imperialist Wars, Free the People. We are now in the Myanmar and Northeast India online rally, part of the International Coordinating Network's global mobilization that calls for an end to the US-led war. Special emphasis will be given on clarifying the inter-imperialist nature of the current world system and the appropriate characterization of militaristic states in line in their place in the system. We highlight our call for today's launch: fight against wars of aggression. Fight! And imperialist wars. And imperialist wars. Free the people. Free the people.
Free the people.
Down imperialism. Down. Thank you so much. The Myanmar and Northeast India online action is made possible by the International Indigenous Peoples Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation, IPMSDL, the ILPS, by Current Peace Support Network, the Youth Forum for Peace and Human Rights, the Center for Research and Advocacy in Manipur, by Alliancy, Mahasiswa Papua, Gempar Papua, Sandugo, People, Citizens News Service, Bangladesh Indigenous Women's Network, Citizens News Service, ASEAN Burma, and many more. And now, we will not take any longer, live from Tripura, from Northeast India. Let us listen to Anthony De Barma, the convener of Borok's People's Human Rights Organization, to highlight how the people are attacked under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act and the brutal militarization of the government of India. Anthony, take it away.
Thank you, Paul. After a long time seeing each other after the COVID, and thank you all the audience, and thank you all my friends who are listening to us. Well, since due to the time constraint that we were given only a few minutes, 5 minutes, so I'll try to highlight. Well, looking at the Northeast, the very word Northeast in India, Northeast of India, itself shows that how the chicken neck actually we are, and it shows that how we are being, distinguished, or we are being actually, even in the definition of the sentence, that it looks like we are totally kind of, separation from that. But since after the Northeast joined and became the part of India, we were being welcomed by so-called the Armed Forces Special Power Act 1958. And the very act was actually enforced by the British colonial during the time of Quit Indian movement in 15 August 1942. So the same act that has been actually enforced when our brothers Nagas and when our brothers of the Northeast, Manipur, Assam, and Mizoram, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh, and Meghalaya, we were all actually being given the special gift that give the license to kill to the indigenous people, that give the license, that so-called the black law, where this law cannot be actually challenged, where this law cannot be booked under the law. So this itself is a very draconian law that has actually destroyed the right of the indigenous movement. The very word, the human rights, identity and the respect itself is being violated. So therefore, today we could see why the India government is enforcing us this black law, draconian law. It's basically to stop the movement, to stop to raise our voice, to stop to raise talking about our identity of the Northeast people, to stop to talk about our culture, to stop to talk about our land and territory and our all the cultural system and traditions. That is how one can actually suppress and stop your economic to develop yourself. We were once upon a time a very self-reliance and having our own culture, having our own constitution, having our own, currency, and so forth, where that point of time, the government of India, the other India is being, ruled by the Britisher. So now we could understand how this kind of aggressions and the kind of, the conquering actually is taking place. One of the reasons why the Northeast is being enforced this Armed Forces Special Power Act is they don't need the people of Northeast. But what they require is a natural resources, where without the Northeast natural resources, India can never become a powerful country in the world. So therefore, even if I would like to recall, when the Mahatma Gandhi wants to actually avoid Northeast India, the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who actually requested the Mahatma Gandhi, saying that if we exclude Northeast India, then India will never ever to become a powerful country in the world. So therefore, they said Northeast is important for us. Why? Because Northeast is having a natural resources, full of natural resources. Now, in order to stop and in order to destroy and curtail our right and our movement and our self-determination movement, they had used this force. But one of the other thing is that although this Armed Forces Special Power Act is being given license to the only in the Indian Army, but we could also see even the paramilitary forces using this act as well. So we could see how this act is parallel is being used, and we have seen thousands and thousands of our innocent indigenous people were killed and were disappears and rape and torture and so forth, even today. But if one has to question today why the Armed Forces Special Power Act is still existing in the Northeast, it is not because of the armed movement and armed struggle, but it is because they want to extract the natural resources, because people are still resisting and struggling to actually preserve and protect our land and territory, our custom, our culture, our identity, our language. So therefore, in order to suppress this movement, in order to, oppress this movement, they still continue to use this Armed Forces Special Power Act. Because recently we have seen in Nagaland, the people how they were being killed, and where the entire Northeast people came together, and where the entire people of the world came together, and we condemn the act of the Indian Army. Now today we are not against the army, we are not against any forces, but we are against the kind of policy that is being enforced to kill its own citizen. Now one can question what is the difference between the armed group, terrorists so-called, and the army. They are all in uniform and they carry the arm and ammunition in their hand. But what we understood and what we understand is that Indian army is to protect its own citizens, is to protect its own land and territory and integrity and security of the country. But today we have seen it is they who kill its own citizen. It is they who acquire and grab the land of its own citizens. So these citizens, indigenous people of the Northeast, is never being, holistically being accepted as a human being, as a indigenous people in the Northeast. So there is a crux of all this kind of, marginalization and discrimination that is being actually made towards the Northeast people. So today we would like to tell to our audience and into this whole 1 month campaign that we can no longer accept at this globalization, at this civilization, stage to welcome this kind of army who really kill its own citizens, who really kills its own culture, who really destroys the language and identity and the land and territory. Today we have to stand together to fight for our justice. If there is no justice, there cannot be peace. So we don't want the violence to take place. We always would like to bring the peace and harmony and want to live as with a dignity as the other people are living in the rest of the world. Why the indigenous people has to be, have to be suppressed and oppressed and suffer every now and then, and fight for our justice, fight for our right, fight for our self-determination, fight for our language, fight for our culture, fight for our clothes, our language, and so on and so forth. So this is something very aggressive that is being actually, operated by the Indian Army, because it is just because of the wrong policy. Now, you could understand when India quit movement of independence is taking place in the gates of India, that is in Mumbai, in Maharashtra, the British have used this act. But today we are asking you, India itself has suffered in such kind of operations and suppressions. But today, why you want to use the same act towards the Northeast people? So we are asking and urging that you should not use this kind of draconian law. You can use with certain better policy where the human rights is being respected, where the indigenous people are being respected, where our indigenous women and children and youth and being respected, and our land, our rights should be respected, and we would like to live with dignity. We don't want to live with a kind of slavery, that kind of atrocity being actually committed towards the indigenous people. So therefore we are against this draconian law, and we urge the India government, and also we urge the entire nations to understand this kind of operations, this kind of suppression using the Armed Forces Special Power Act, which is a dragon law, where you cannot even challenge in the eye of law, is injustifying, and you cannot treat these governations in that manner. Now, if you are still treating the indigenous people in that manner, then what is the use of having so-called the human rights? So the very human rights is understood that human rights is inherent right, but these inherent rights are being violated and being disrespected, and that is where the Northeast people is a loving, peaceful, loving people, and we are culturally diverse and having lot of our traditions where we love each other, where we enjoy. In spite of our suppressions, oppression, still we learn to live in peace and harmony. Still, we don't want to be violent. Still, we don't want to, use that kind of, hatred and that kind of force. But we want to have a very peaceful process life, and we can solve this kind of, problem with a peaceful process sitting in a round table. And please consider the indigenous people of Northeast into a dialogue where we can really solve. But what you need to understand is you need to understand the root cause of why the Northeast has known us to be a conflict. But today, I'm proudly saying, and I want to tell the whole nations, the whole globe, that Northeast people is not a conflict area. Northeast people is a peace-loving people where we are having a diverse culture, having a different folk, and having a different, culture where we learn to live with a peace and harmony, and where we respect the human rights today. But it is a policy, it is a system that has institutionalized and has brought into this kind of conflict. And it is not we, the Northeast people, who is responsible, but it is the policymakers, it is the government of India who has used this dragon law. They are the responsible of making the conflict and violating the human rights. And as I would like to share in the last, before I end, see, human rights violations is a violations that is being only committed by the state actor. But if people question what about the other non-state actor when they commit the human rights, and I say that is not a human rights violation, but that is a crime. And but when the crime is not being given justice and being and punished to the perpetrator, that point of time it becomes a human rights violation. So it is a responsible of the state of using this force to kill the innocent people, to rape the innocent people of the indigenous people in the Northeast. That's why the Northeast people stand together and is still fighting for our right and for our identity, and for our culture and for our land and territory. I think, Paul, this is how, since you are giving me only the 5 minutes, I think the 5 minutes is over. So therefore, I would like to conclude here. And if there is a question hour, yes, you are all most welcome. And thank you very much. Thank you once again. So I end here.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for a very sharp description of how we fight for peace, rooted in justice, how we fight for rights against the policies that enable such brutal attacks on the rights of indigenous peoples and the people of the Northeast and all of India. And this has been brought into many laws and many policies, many actions that attacks the peoples. Again, our call, repeal AFSPA! Repeal AFSPA! Repeal AFSPA! Repeal AFSPA! Repeal UAPA! Repeal UAPA! Stop militarization of indigenous communities!
Stop militarization in
indigenous communities! Stop!
Shana pung mayo Shana Pumayo Laina Thavana Lamdamni.
That beautiful song is dedicated by Impaltokis and the Howlers to the many victims of extrajudicial killings and human rights violations from the heavy militarization and attacks by the state armed forces. And now, let's listen to James Bochuri, the senior campaigner, Asia Program for Climate Change, and General Secretary of the Global Naga Forum. And let's listen on how the war against the people, war against indigenous peoples and rural communities impacts the life and the rights of indigenous peoples in the Northeast. James? I think you're on mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. The impact of India and Burma's military propaganda and cultural war against Naga indigenous people's right of self-determination is my topic. Thank you for this opportunity and revolutionary salute to the distinguished network members of the International Coordination Network. The Global Naga Forum stand in solidarity with oppressed and dispossessed indigenous peoples around the world as we seek the same for the Naga struggle against extermination and assimilation by India and Burma. On 4th and 5th December 2021, 14 innocent Naga civilians were murdered in Oting and Mon in Nagaland. No Indian armed personnel have been criminally prosecuted for these or any of the thousands of Naga civilians murdered. For the government of India and the Indian Army, the Northeast has become a theater of war to practice on live human beings. A full military campaign against the Nagas started in 1954. It did not accomplish the intended goal, so the central government went to the parliament and had the Extrajudicial Armed Forces Special Powers Act passed in 1958. The AFSPA was renewed on 1st April 2022 in the Naga areas of Arunachal Pradesh. On this very day, the 12th Para Special Commando Force willfully shot 2 Chasa villagers who were coming back to their village after a day of fishing. A week before, on 21st March 2022, the 6th Assam Rifles went to Kolagaon village and Reto Kakho in Arunachal Pradesh and shot and killed a former village leader in front of his villagers and family members. The Nagas were determined to be free of Indian control, and to do so, Nagas raised a resistance force to defend their homeland. On the Indian side, under cover of AFSPA, the army tortured and murdered Nagas with complete impunity. The Naga Chronicle and the International Work Group for Indigenous Affairs, IWGIA, described the ways the Indian army terrorized the people, including 1. Execution in public, mass raping, deforming sex organs, mutilating limbs, electric shocks, puncturing eyes, hanging people upside down, locking people in smoke-filled rooms, burning villages and granaries, forced starvation and labor. To this day, the draconian extrajudicial laws have not been repealed. AFSPA was extended in Nagaland again in December 2021, despite decades-old demand for repeal of the act. The Naga areas in India continue to be heavily militarized zones. There are currently 183 Indian military camps, 3 army divisions, 9 brigades, 37 battalions, 129 outposts, 7 transit camps, and 1 corps. In the Naga areas of Manipur state, the Assam Rifles stands at about 65,000 Indian soldiers. 3 major weapons in the Indian government's unrelenting campaign against the Naga people's movement for self-determination include: first, military force to crush the movement starting in 1953. But since they could not do that, the following year in 1958, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act was passed. After more than 6 decades, the Indian Armed Forces have mostly completed the job, yet the AFSPA remains in place and the Naga homeland continues to be increasingly militarized. The second item in the Indian government's anti-Naga self-determination campaign has been the Intelligence Bureau. Its role has been to create divisions among the Nagas every which way. With the government of India in tow, with a free cash flow to corrupt and change Naga traditional values and indigenous governance. This mission of dividing and corrupting the Nagas has been accomplished with remarkable success for India, but irreparable harm to the Naga society. What remains in the 21st century then is the third anti-Naga weapon being wielded by the government of India, bringing Naga society in alignment with Hindu India. This project is being conducted passionately by the BJP government at the center. The Hindu-centric national education in Nagaland and the whole of the Northeast is the goal. And the latest diktat from Delhi making Hindi compulsory in the region is an intentional step in that direction. The region is remarkably rich in language and cultures, with 101 distinct and indigenous peoples, scheduled tribes, and 114 indigenous languages. So these are the three ways in which the government of India is trying to sabotage all that Mr. Anthony De Burma has mentioned. All these being done for one and only one goal, that is to expropriate the natural resources at the expense of the people, the culture, the biodiversity, the cultural biodiversity, and all that we mean by indigenous peoples. So this is a very long-awaited campaign launch, international campaign launch, and we look forward to a more focused campaign so that we have a clear goal of what we want to achieve in a time-bound manner. And with hard work, we can confidently march ahead together by supporting each other. We need each other more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. Against our call in support of our people of Northeast, repeal AFSPA!
Repeal AFSPA!
Repeal AFSPA!
Repeal AFSPA!
Stop militarization of indigenous communities!
Stop militarization of indigenous.
Again, we stress our unity and solidarity as mentioned by our comrades Anthony and James. Now more than ever, we need everyone to stand together for our rights against the war, against the people, against these brutal attacks, which is funded by the people's money, which is supported by different foreign nations to attack our communities and our brothers and sisters. Thank you, James. And now, from the Northeast India, we are also gathering to register our solidarity with the people of Myanmar and its different ethnic nationalities against the brutal and war-thirsty Tatmadaw military. As more war breaks out and the people face intensified repression, it is as important now as ever to strengthen movements to build solidarity with Myanmar's people and the people of Northeast, asserting their collective democratic rights, self-determination, and social and national liberation. Now, let's welcome a video from the Karen Peace Support Network and understand the fight of the ethnic nationalities against the military government. No to military dictatorship in Myanmar!
No!
Free Myanmar!
Democracy now!
Free Myanmar!
Democracy now!
Free Myanmar!
Democracy now!
Li boy Hashali, boy Hashali. Boy, really, Haki Darali. Haki, really.
Quy lò đi. Bia. Haki mic lên. Hai là đồ lò đi. 看没有那个鬼来了。完了！完了，干了那些，那把他那把干了那把，那个咖啡来关的。完了，你现在干了，好的，我快走。我这不呢，那靠看你靠不吧？关了带回来呢，啊，看了呢，到个路里到那起码路里呢还走。你那么怕你地方你落了。
这个猫看哪里？这猫看里。哈？看了不了。这边嘛，谁不知道的？看里。
我不爱记者嘛。啊？不爱记者了，但是你看看看到了。
Chưa đi, có bao nhiêu chưa ra? Chứ là mình xem nó qua đi. Ui, ai vậy? Ui, là tụi phát làm rồi. Hết bù ra mà. À cái gì? Ui, sao đó? Lên luôn này. Cho hết tay nè. Boy khả năng boy khả năng đi hay bố bố lo mấy má lên nằm lưu hay là tôm mò này đi khoe này hết lên bài gì có chút gì bà kịp gì hả lên để bà hay bố bố lo tôi có lên à quán lên mà em biết bạn cần khăn nó bao nhiêu lô phản đúng không? Khăn tiền với hết bù lót hay cả. Anh khăn bắt khăn là quen rồi.
Mà chỉ cần ít lô thôi, rồi. Hả?
Ui, lên bà. Lên bà. Anh vậy. Khăn bù lót. Khá là bố lắm.
Không quen cái chỗ bỏ ra đi rồi.
Không quen này.
Có đi đâu mà cái chưa tên gì cả này. Gì vậy? Úp lên. Nó bảo phố. Anh chỉ nói ngồi lên thôi. Anh chỉ nói trâu lên thằng lên gì trâu lên.
Alo, bọn khoa. Ê, ông khoa khá là được nhỉ. Lấy cho lên mà không bảo hỏa, phải quan lên. Ôi, khá đi.
Lên khá đi.
Mấy khá là mà là le marghi teninya e ko boy he khala da ko dipota del faba ha
Aquí plena.
chiu ko tu le polak la ha ni le polak lai awe ta utra odo du de awe ne tem cha ko boy he khala ne tu le tu le to wa bu ko bla di ne tu ki le to wa bu
Coblo này là có 30 lớp khoảng mình qua thời là bậc kỳ lớp tôi không thì đam nó rồi
mình xem lấy tóc hiểu mà không mà tao tại cho là cái
rồi mà hay là đưa xe gì à vậy mà nó ốp đi lo này mà là blog rồi mà ai được gì
không nhận lấy tao họ đưa khai sinh nhà awe cái kia là tại cho là từ mấy ba chi ba hà từ cái mà ở miền Bắc cái là tao miền Bắc vào mà
nó đuôi này bán cũng lẻ nhá nó đuôi này mà bây giờ mà là vừa chút chỉ quen miền Bắc được ta bay vô mà
cái mà nó thì có gà à phần đồ nó nên hay là từ ô từ mấy thứ này từ cái teo mình làm mà
chỉ kêu là cái boy mà mà phía mà cái đó chỉ kêu là nó cái đó trả lỗ đó nó trả all khai đơn luôn trả all khai
That video, thank you so much to Now Wakushi, the Executive Director of Karen Peace Support Network. Unfortunately, She was unable to join us because of heavy rains and flooding in their community in Thailand. Actually, in Northeast India, there has been a very huge flooding, strong rains, and now also in Thailand. But thank you so much to our friends, brothers, and sisters from the Northeast India and Myanmar and Thailand for coming here. That video from the Karen Peace Support Network shows the heavy airstrikes, shelling, and bombing of the Karen community, where thousands and thousands of refugees are fleeing their communities due to heavy militarization. Militarization by the military coup dictatorship, which is now in more than a year in Myanmar, and their call is to stand with them to stop the militarization, the bombing, the shelling, and airstrikes, and to boycott and to call for the many imperialist countries, the big countries that supplies the fuel for the airstrikes, for the planes, military planes that drops these bombs and damages and bring havoc to the village and to the people, the Karen people and the different ethnic nationalities in Myanmar. So our call, stop airstrikes in ethnic communities.
Stop!
End coup now!
End coup now!
Fight for democracy!
Fight for democracy!
No to military dictatorship in Myanmar!
No!
Tanzania, Meta, Rumi, Latvia. But home or Tanzania, Mista, Renata, Tania. No way, the carry she's the content of Bame Sekota. Yachico, why no Johnny, fake time, and come up with my Tipping down. Talo nalo yama. Hey, Nadia go ya ye song ti twa ma ba. Tamo de she ma cha, se diao lo mau to twa ma ba. Naya ye ka, naya ye twe ye ma. Tare nariga, golo of your majama. Anashe mondo jame loshi, Idure kakwa jame loshi, Tambo redo to me, Nanya traye molobi. Anashe mondo jame loshi, Idure kakwa jame loshi, Tambo redo to me, Nanya traye molobi. Sana bodo jame, Amelia bema maro yetiri. Sông thì toa mà ba Tầng mông để xe mà cha Xe diao đồ mau tô toa mà ba Hey! Naya ye ka Naya ye quê về ye đi mà Bây tha để nà rì gà Cô lô ở chỗ mà cha မှာပါအာနာရှင်မောင်းတော့ကြမယ်လို့ရှိပြည်သူတွေကန့်ကွက်ကြမယ်လို့ရှိတန်ဖိုးတွေတို့သူဒီအမှန်တရားအတွက်ရဲရင်မို့လို့ဒီအာနာရှင်မောင်းတော့ကြမယ်လို့ရှိပြည်သူတွေကန့်ကွက်ကြမယ်လို့ရှိတန်ဖိုးတွေတို့သူဒီအမှန်တရားအတွက်ရဲရင်မို့လို့ဒီဆန္ဒပေါ်တော့ကြမယ်မတရားဘက်မှာငါတို့ရဲ့တည်ပြီးဆန္ဒပေါ်တော့ကြမယ်မတရားဘက်မှာငါတို့ရဲ့တည်ပြီးဒီမိုကရေစီရရှိရဲ့ရိုးရဲဒီမိုကရေစီရရှိရဲ့ရိုးရဲဟာရိုးမတန်နဲ့ရိုးထွက်ရေတော်ဘုံအောင်ရမည်ရေတော်ဘုံအောင်ရမည်
Thank you so much, Alomashi or reject or unwanted. Thank you so much for that song from our friends in Myanmar, from the Spring Revolution in Myanmar. That song is a popular protest song that calls to drive away the dictators and reject and protest until the revolution succeeds. Again, our call, end coup now!
End coup now!
End coup now!
End coup now!
Fight for democracy!
Fight!
Fight for democracy!
Fight!
No to military dictatorship in Myanmar!
No!
And now at this point, let's listen to Yasmin Ullah. Yasmin is a Rohingyan feminist author, poet, and a social justice activist. She was born in the northern Rakhine state of Myanmar, and to share the people's fight against the Tatmadao's war against the people and their rights and their freedom.
You're muted. Unmute.
While we're fixing the video of Yasmin, again, we are here at the part of the Myanmar and Northeast India launch, participation in the global launch of the anti-war campaign, the online rally. And again, thank you so much for coming us with here, standing with the people of the Northeast, the people of Myanmar, facing the different levels, different aspects of attack by the military dictatorship, by the militarized policies, their communities, on the attacks on the indigenous communities and the people of Myanmar and Northeast India. Again, we stand with the people of Myanmar, we stand with the people of Northeast, we stand with them against these attacks, the brutal attacks that has violated their rights to self-determination, violated their rights, and we stand with them in their continuous fight, and as they call against the many imperialist powers, the foreign funders of the different state military forces, where the people's money, the people's taxes, the people's resources are used against them. And again, we stand with them, and this is the part of the launch, the global launch of the anti-war campaign. And while we are fixing the video of Yasmin, other than our speakers from Myanmar and Northeast, we have a lot of our friends, our comrades from different parts of the world who sent their solidarity message all the way from different parts of Asia and different parts of the globe. So for now, let us hear some of the solidarity messages. First, from Gino from the Aliansi Mahasiswa Papua. Second, from Amira Lidasan from Sandogo in the Philippines. And the third, from Chanchan Chakma, Juma Peoples from the Bangladesh Indigenous Women's Network in Bangladesh. End coup now!
End coup now!
Fight for democracy!
Fight!
Fight
Gino. I'm from West Papua. My organization, the Papuan Student Alliance. I want to talk about the militarism in Myanmar, people group minority in India, and the militarism and colonialism in West Papua. Myanmar, India, and West Papua together against war and militarism against people minority group. Brought by the Myanmar military regime, more and more occurs silencing of the demonstration space, catching even murder of. The violent action doing by the military during has already a year and already to destroy 1,500,000 victims of civil society. Directly impact from this situation, more and more from the youth section choice to take the weapon and against back the regime. As like the situation that happened of India, with the protection concerning of social minority, the impact on conflict, where is the majority hardline of Hindu attack to minority of Islamic and Christian. Matter of this consecutive with regulation is very discriminatory and a process. As like amendment of Citizen 2019 about interdiction of relationship with direction religion, interdiction using hijab on school, and the other rules of discriminative, which result in 1,000 people or minority society become a victim. The other problem come from West Papua, where is the colony of Indonesian for the sake of protecting resource exploitation nature. Indonesia already sent the military in a much larger science year 1961 until 2022. Mother
Assalamualaikum, greetings of peace and solidarity to all our brothers and sisters who cherish and fight for freedom and democracy. I am Amira Ali Lidasan, your sister Bangsamoro from Mindanao, Philippines. And this message goes out to our brothers and sisters in Myanmar and Northeast India, whom we share the struggle against wars of aggression by our reactionary government through the aid of imperialists who seek to dominate our people and our resources. These wars of aggression have only brought death and displacement of our people and destruction of our communities and loss of our ancestral land. We share the fight against plunder of our resources, control of our territories, attack against our people through militarism, counterinsurgency, and systematic discrimination of our tribes, peoples, and our faith and culture. We unite with those fellow national minorities and the peoples of the world in the fight against wars of aggression, and we are one with the struggle to end imperialist wars. Free the people and long live international solidarity.
Uh, I would like to give you the solidarity message. Myanmar and India against war and militarism.
and on the indigenous people and minority people, which is they are having militarization. It is very harmful for around the world. Militarization is not good for the indigenous people, and as well as in my country also, Chittagong Hill Tracts also, we are having militarization. But militarization is very dangerous for the indigenous people. I would like to send the solidarity message to the Myanmar and India people. Stop the militarization and save indigenous people. Thank you so much.
Fight against wars of aggression. Fight against wars of aggression. End imperialist wars. Free the people. Down with imperialism. Imperialism. Thank you so much for those messages from Gino from West Papua, Amira from Philippines, and Chanchana from Bangladesh. Again, another round of messages from Bobby Ramakan from the Citizens News Service, from Kakay Tolentino of Bay Indigenous Women's Network, and Katribu, and lastly from Sam from Gempar, West Papua.
Hello friends, this is Bobby from CNS and also from Asha Parivar and Socialist Party India. On behalf of all our members, we would like to express a solidarity and stand with the international observation of the day against the wars of imperialism, wars of aggression, and also to demand freedom for all. So free the people. We join that call. We also extend full support to the call to repeal Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which has been in India, in the Northeast and Jammu Kashmir, and given the kind of abuses, human rights abuses and violations which have been reported over the years, and this act is based on the premise that the uniformed forces get power to kill based on suspicion, which is unimaginable in any sane society. So I think so we extend our support. We are very grateful to International Indigenous Peoples Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation, ILPS Commission 10, Karen Peace Network, the Youth Forum for Peace and Human Rights, Center for Research and Advocacy, and other partners that have put together such an important event. मैं फिर से ये बात दोहराना चाहूँगा कि साम्राज्यवादी जंगों का, साम्राज्यवादी लड़ाइयों का अंत हो, हर इंसान को स्वतंत्रता और मिल सके, सामाजिक न्याय और जो विकास की, जो डेवलपमेंट जस्टिस की जो समझ है, उसके आधार पे हर इंसान को बराबरी समानता के साथ स्वतंत्रता मिल सके. नमस्ते.
Mabuhay from the Philippines. In behalf of the IP organizations under the Katribu, Alliance of Indigenous Peoples Organizations, and the Bai Indigenous Women's Network in the country, we salute the bravery of Indigenous peoples of India and Myanmar, who continue to fight for their rights. We also extend our warmest solidarity for their struggle for self-determination and freedom, as we call on the members of Alliance and our communities to support and amplify the campaigns of fellow indigenous peoples across the globe for land rights and ways of life. Imperialist wars rage throughout the world to secure control our territory, natural resources, and markets in a multipolar world. Because of these aggressions, thousands of people are dying. directly by armed attacks. Millions are forced to flee their homelands, experience extreme poverty that results to hunger and even death. But people's movements, including indigenous people's movement, to defend themselves and assert their collective democratic rights, self-determinations, social and national liberation continue to burn. Now, more than ever, it is important to strengthen movements to fight against imperialist war and free the people. This morning, rank of indigenous peoples and IP rights advocates, together with other Filipino sectors, marched towards the seat of imperialist power in the country as we launch the campaign to fight against war of aggressions and imperialist wars. Free the people. Long live the people's struggle of India. Long live people's struggle of Myanmar. And imperialist war. Free the people now.
Hello to the indigenous people in India and Myanmar. I'm Salom Sior, the spokesman of Gempar Papua, the youth movement for liberation from West Papua. In this moment, we want to share our solidarity to all of you. We know about your situation, your struggles, your hope to be free and go out from the militarism and fascism system on your country. We want to encourage you, your teams, your communities, your target and your visions. So keep fighting and don't lose your hope. Believe that the people united will never be defeated, because at the same time in our land of West Papua have a similar situation. The colonialism of Indonesia with their military operation, democratic silence, the arrested and murder of activists, and also indigenous Papua already lost their land up to 29 million hectares because of companies' activities. As you know, West Papua initially had 42 million hectares, but it is now reduced, so indigenous people like us have fewer area to survive. We are already minority in our land. There are about 1.2 million of Papuans. At the same time, Indonesia have 257 million people, and every single day they came to Papua to occupy our land. Can you imagine that? So for indigenous people in India, Myanmar, Philippines, also in West Papua, but also all of the indigenous people around the world war against the same adversary like imperialism, capitalism, colonialism, and militarism. We must stand together, sharing information, or in Papua language is Baku Kastau, in our group, our team, and so on. If this is our land, don't be afraid. Believe that we fight for our family, our generation, future, and for our life. Finally, in our organization, Gempar Papua, our statement is close your eyes and fight back. Long live international solidarity. Warm regard from us, West Papua, Gempar Papua, Salam Sior, Kasumasa Sioi.
so much to the very heartfelt and strong messages from different organizations, different groups, from our different friends and comrades around the world. And now we request everyone in our online rally to open their camera and mic to join us and stand with us and carry on the fight for the people of Northeast India, of Myanmar, and the world to achieve genuine peace and end imperialist war. Together, let us raise our voice. Repeal AFSPA!
Repeal AFSPA!
Repeal UAPA!
Repeal UAPA!
Stop militarization of indigenous communities!
Stop!
Stop airstrikes in ethnic communities!
Stop!
No to military dictatorship in Myanmar!
No!
Free Myanmar!
Democracy now!
Free Myanmar!
Democracy now!
Fight against wars of aggression!
Fight!
End imperialist wars!
Imperialist wars!
Free the people!
Free the people!
Down with imperialism!
Down!
The people united!
Will never reach
International solidarity!
Long live international solidarity.
We still have a lot of programs for this global launch, and we invite you to continue watching, joining us here in Zoom and our Facebook Live. Again, let's launch and build our movement against war. Long live international solidarity!
Long live international solidarity!